What if I told you that the hardest prison in the world has no bars, no locks, no guards, no walls you can touch? What if I told you that millions of people wake up every morning, go to a job they hate, smile at people they barely know, work until their bones ache, and then go home to an empty apartment and lie awake wondering, is this really it? This is the story of a man named Daniel, a man who had everything the world told him to want, and yet he had never felt more lost in his life. Stay with me, because by the end of this story, something inside you is going to shift. I promise. Daniel was 34 years old when this story begins. On paper, his life was perfect. He had a corner office on the 27th floor of one of the most prestigious consulting firms in New York City. He drove a black BMW that still smelled new. He wore Italian suits that cost more than most people's rent. His LinkedIn profile had over 10,000 connections. He had a six-figure salary, a personal trainer, and a meal delivery subscription that sent him carefully portioned organic meals every day. He worked 80 hours a week. Sometimes more. He told himself it was worth it. He told himself this was success. He told himself that the empty feeling in his chest was just stress, and that once he got the next promotion, once he hit the next milestone, once he earned just a little bit more, he would finally feel okay. But the promotion came, and the feeling didn't go away. The milestone came. The feeling didn't go away. The money came. And still, the feeling didn't go away. He had a memory from when he was 7 years old. He was in his grandmother's garden in Ohio. It was summer. The grass was long, and the fireflies were just beginning to appear at dusk. His grandmother handed him a strawberry from the garden, still warm from the sun, and said, "Danny, you know what happiness is? Happiness is when you forget to check the time." Daniel hadn't forgotten to check the time in over 15 years. Every minute of his day was scheduled, accounted for, optimized. He had even scheduled 30 minutes on Sunday mornings for relaxation. But he could never actually relax, because even in those 30 minutes, he was thinking about Monday. It was a Tuesday in November when everything cracked, not broke, not shattered dramatically, just cracked, like a windshield that had been under pressure for too long. And suddenly, one tiny stone was enough. Daniel had just finished a 14-hour day. His team had delivered the quarterly report on time. His boss had sent a 2-word response, "Good work." And Daniel had sat there, reading those 2 words, and felt absolutely nothing. Not proud, not relieved, not happy. Nothing. He went to the men's room, stood at the sink, looked at himself in the mirror, and for the first time in years, he really looked at himself. There were dark circles under his eyes that never fully went away anymore. His jaw was tight even when he wasn't thinking about anything stressful. His shoulders were hunched forward from years of leaning over a keyboard. He had lost 12 pounds in the last year without trying. Not because he was healthy, but because he often forgot to eat until it was late at night. He looked at himself and thought, when did this happen? When did I stop being a person and start being a machine? He called his best friend Marcus. They had been friends since college, but somewhere in the last 5 years, their calls had gotten shorter and shorter. From an hour to 30 minutes, to a quick text every few weeks, Marcus picked up on the 3rd ring. "Danny? It's 11 p.m., man. Is everything okay?" Daniel opened his mouth to say, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just calling to catch up." Instead, what came out was, "I don't know who I am anymore." There was a long silence. Then Marcus said quietly, "I know. I've been waiting for you to say that." They met that weekend at their old college park. Marcus brought coffee. Daniel brought nothing, which was unusual for someone who always came prepared for everything. They sat for a while without talking. Then Marcus said, "Do you remember what you wanted to be when you were a kid?" Daniel thought about it. "A marine biologist. I wanted to study whales, Marcus smiled. You used to have that poster of orca whales above your dorm bed. You used to say you were going to go to Iceland and swim with them someday. Daniel laughed. A real laugh, for the first time in he didn't know how long. I forgot about that. When did you forget? Marcus asked. And Daniel didn't have an answer. The forgetting had happened slowly, quietly, one compromise at a time, one practical decision at a time. His father had been a struggling artist, and Daniel had watched him worry about money his whole childhood, so when he got to college, he chose finance. Because finance was safe. Finance was secure. Finance was what responsible people did, and year by year, the boy who loved whales had been buried under spreadsheets, quarterly reports, and performance reviews. I chose safety, Daniel said, and I got it. I got all the safety I ever wanted, and I am so tired. Marcus nodded slowly. You know what I think? I think you've spent 15 years building a life that looks right, and now you're scared to admit that it doesn't feel right. Because if I admit that, Daniel said slowly, then what? I throw everything away? I start over at 34. Not throw away, Marcus said. Just look honestly. That's all. Just look honestly at what you have and what you're missing. That night, Daniel did something he hadn't done since he was a teenager. He wrote, not a report, not a strategy document, not an email. He just wrote. Whatever came out, he wrote, I am so tired of performing. I am tired of performing confidence in meetings when I feel hollow inside. I am tired of performing happiness at company events. I am tired of performing success on social media while sitting alone in my apartment at 10 p.m. Eating takeout for the 4th night in a row. I have optimized every corner of my life. My calendar, my diet, my sleep schedule, my networking, my productivity. And somewhere in all that optimization, I optimized away everything that actually made me feel alive. He stopped writing and just sat there in the quiet. His apartment was so quiet, he had always filled the silence with work, with podcasts, with background noise. He realized he was afraid of the quiet, because in the quiet he had to face himself. The next morning, he called his mother. She picked up immediately. She always did. Danny, I was just thinking about you. Hi, Mom. His voice cracked on those 2 words. Just slightly. Sweetheart, she said quietly. What's wrong? Nothing, he started to say, then everything. I think everything is wrong, Mom, and I don't know how to fix it. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't give him advice or a 5-step plan. She just said, I know, honey. I know. Tell me. And he talked for 2 hours. It was the longest conversation they'd had in 6 years. 3 weeks later, Daniel walked into his boss's office and asked for a leave of absence. Claire stared at him. A leave of absence, she repeated. Daniel, you're up for senior partner in 6 months. I know, he said. This is not a good time. I know, he said again. But I'm not sure there's ever a good time for this kind of thing. And I think if I don't do it now, I never will. Claire studied him for a long moment. Then she leaned back in her chair. Can I ask you something personal? She said. He nodded. Are you happy here? He thought about the honest answer. I'm good at it, he said carefully. I'm very good at it, but I haven't been happy in a long time. Something shifted in Claire's face, something human. Take the 3 months, she said quietly, and Daniel, figure it out. Really figure it out, because being good at something you hate is its own kind of tragedy. He rented a small cabin on the coast of Maine for a month. No meetings, no emails, no performance reviews. Just the ocean, just silence, just himself. The first week was brutal. He didn't know what to do with stillness. He paced. He made lists of things he should be doing. He checked his work email twice before catching himself and forcing himself to close the tab. The second week was better. He started waking up without an alarm. He started cooking his own meals, real meals, not from a delivery app. He walked along the shoreline every morning for an hour, not listening to a podcast or a TED talk, just walking, just breathing. He started reading. Not industry reports, not self-help books about productivity. He went to a small bookstore in the town and wandered the shelves until something caught his eye. A worn copy of a book about the humpback whale migration patterns along the Atlantic coast. He sat down on a bench outside the store and read for 3 hours without stopping. And he forgot to check the time. He cried. Sitting alone in a kayak in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, watching whales move through the water in their ancient, unhurried way, he cried. Not sad tears, something else. Something that had been waiting behind his ribs for a very long time, finally getting permission to exist. He thought of his grandmother's garden. He thought of the fireflies. He thought of the strawberry, still warm from the sun. Happiness is when you forget to check the time. Daniel did not quit his job. Not right away. Life doesn't always work like a movie. Sometimes the transformation is quieter. Sometimes it's not about burning everything down. It's about finally being honest about what you're building. What changed was this. Daniel stopped lying to himself. He went back to work. But he set boundaries for the first time in his career. He stopped answering emails after 7 p.m. He started taking his full lunch break and actually going outside. He called his mother every Sunday. He started a volunteer program on weekends with a local marine conservation group. Small things, quiet things, but they were his things. 2 years later, he left the consulting firm. Not in a dramatic blaze, but cleanly, clearly, with enough savings to take his time. He enrolled in a marine biology research program at a university in Oregon. He was the oldest person in his cohort by 11 years. His classmates were 22, 23 years old. They called him Professor Dan as a joke. He loved it. He didn't make as much money. His apartment was smaller. His car was older. But here is what Daniel told his niece years later when she asked him what success meant. Success is not the absence of struggle. It's not the size of your paycheck or the view from your office window. Success is waking up and feeling like what you're doing matters. Success is going to bed at night and feeling like you were actually present today. Success is knowing who you are when no one is watching. Maybe you know this feeling. Maybe right now, as you're watching this, there is a quiet voice somewhere inside you that has been trying to say something for a long time. And you've been covering it with work, with noise, with the constant busyness of modern life. I want to ask you something, and I want you to really sit with it. When was the last time you forgot to check the time? When was the last time you did something? Not because it was productive, not because it looked good, not because someone expected it of you, but simply because it made you feel alive. The world will always have another deadline, another goal, another milestone to chase, but your life, your one unrepeatable life, is happening right now, in between the meetings and the deadlines and the notifications. In the quiet moments you keep skipping over because you're always rushing to the next thing. You don't have to quit your job tomorrow. You don't have to move to a cabin in Maine. You don't have to make a dramatic gesture. But maybe today, just today, you could be honest with yourself about one thing that isn't working, one thing that you've been ignoring, one small light inside you that you've let dim because you were too busy. Because, here's what Daniel learned, floating in a kayak watching whales, the life you actually want is not waiting at the end of some achievement. It's not behind the next promotion or the next salary increase. It's here. It's now. It's in the moments you allow yourself to be fully present, and it's never too late to find your way back to yourself. Thank you for watching. If this story touched something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you're carrying something heavy right now, I see you. You're not alone.